Hey folks, Magnus from MKP here. This is my first ever YouTube video, and today I'm going to be breaking down the song Abattoir by the band Thou Art a Saint, and I'm going to be going through the thought processes and techniques and stages of this particular song. Right, so here we have the mix session itself, quite easily laid out, drums, guitars and bass, standard song, a couple of extra embellishments such as a piano, a violin, done by MIDI, as well as some wee sound effects and a choir. Right, let's break this down. First, we'll focus on drums. So we'll solo the drums. Okay, so they're quite easily balanced. There's nothing too fancy going on here. Most of the processing is going on the kick and snare because obviously they're the main aspects of the drums that I wanted to have visible in this particular song. One thing I will mention is I did have the JST maximizer open just on the pop punk flubby to clear on the blue mode because that sounds better. Just as on the actual drum folder. I've got it going through a Ferric TDS, a couple of EQs. I've got a multi-band compressor just to compress a little bit more of the attack of the drums. So the kick drum on its own without processing sounds like this. Nothing very exciting. Then you enable it. So, it's not so bad. On their own, they don't sound very impressive, but impressive for the song. Okay, so as with the snare, it's also going through a couple of EQs, a compressor, and another EQ just for corrective, and then a limiter just to make sure it doesn't peak. And then that in turn is going to a bus where it's going to another compressor with some saturation as well as even more saturation. I wanted the snare to be loud and punchy, but I didn't want it to be pointy and painful on the listener. Moving on, we will go to guitars. So here are the guitar folders, and as I think obviously here I've tracked one set of guitars and obviously wasn't happy with it. The original model that I used was a Soldano amp, so we'll listen to the two rhythms of the originals. They sound okay, but they just didn't sound quite as nice, so then I retracked everything with a Mesa set and it just sounds that much better. And it sounded great in the choruses. So the whole point that I wanted with the guitars is that I wanted them to be quite loud and upfront, but I didn't want them to be overbearing. So I used a few techniques, such as using a saturation and widening bus. So I have the two guitars on left and right, sending it to a separate bus where it saturates it and inflates it, but it also just presents more of the top end. So there's a track underneath everything along with a kick and snare just to spread the guitars out. I can show this by soloing just the two rhythm tracks. And then if I find the saturation bus. Okay, so we'll listen to that on its own. Okay, it sounds okay, but then when you add this one. So it might not seem overly present, but it's definitely an effect that is felt rather than that is abundantly obvious. I think if something's in your face obvious, then it might not necessarily be needed. When you're A-Bing, you should be able to hear a slight difference or even feel a slight difference. But if it's in your face obvious, then I think, in my own personal opinion, it's a bit too harsh. But that isn't the case of this song. This song was mixed 9 months ago. Obviously, nowadays I probably would have done something different, but I think the same with a lot of musicians and engineers can easily become tweakaholics. Right, moving on. Clean guitars. Clean guitars have very little processing. They're all just going to they're not even being processed at all on their main folder. They're going to a bus where there is a reverb. So it's a Valhalla Supermassage and the reverse cloud of eighths, as you can see here. And they just sounded really nice right out the box. All guitars and bass were recorded with a Headrush gig board. So yeah, a lot of it was simplicity was key. A lot of things were doubled on other instruments, such as the leads from the guitars. So the lead guitars were here. So it's a main lead, harmony, and then an octave of the original. Which is also doubled on a piano and strings. So I think the key on one of the keys of this song was the fact that a lot of stuff was just layered, just for the sheer sake of saturation and volume, just to take up the space, and it definitely worked. Especially when it came to the vocals. The vocals are quite extensive, actually. One of the benefits of working with Laura McDougall from The Artist Saint was the fact that she was able to double her vocal tracks very easily, just record a track and then double it again, and there was no timing issues, no mistakes or anything. She was incredibly consistent, and she knew what she wanted to hear at the end of it. I just helped her get there, and I insisted on doubling everything that was possible. Another trick that she used, particularly in the verses, was here you can see that the main lines have been broken up. So there's the first part, second part, third part, fourth, and then after that she's doubled it with a one taker to glue it all together, just to give it that wee bit of humanity. Fix your eyes on the obvious agony, cause that's exactly what you made me for. The backing vocals at the back for emphasis. But now it's getting harder to ignore. You make me blind. You struggle so to cut us so damn deep. It was already over. So again, with vocals, with screams, it was very much about compression and getting the aggression out. She was displaying in her voice. Everything was recorded on an SM57, nothing fancy at all. Cleans were just about trying to get some of the saturation and just to get the vocals as warm as possible. So I used a proximity to make it sound like everything was recorded from the same distance. Again, nothing too shape. And then I added some wave shaping distortion. And obviously your bog standard buses and just adding more to the sound. The choruses were very anthemic. So to back them up, there was a MIDI chorus of a main melody and a harmony. And then all together it sounds like this. Alright, and finally we will focus on the bass. Now the bass had probably the least amount of work done to it. It was a wet signal taken out of the Headrush gig board. It was sent to a compression bus, but the fader wasn't set very high. The compression bus had just this stereo bus compressor just on its standard settings, and then I put the JST maximizer on it just to inflate it and brighten the sound, just to brighten the character of it. But on its own, it had additional surgical and subtractive EQs. Then it went into the Anarchy compressor just for a tighter bass. I didn't even saturate it because I wanted clarity over mush. And then it went into the HYMB drive from, is it Heiken? I don't know how to pronounce their name, but it sounds like a Swedish company, Heiken. But yeah, at the end of it came out sounding fantastic, and it was a really great fun song to work on. Right, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I know these kind of videos can be boring and not very entertaining, but this is my first ever YouTube video, so thank you for watching if you did, and I will be back breaking down more songs and how I mix them and how I got to the end result. Thank you very much.